Hi, I'm Sid Chat. I'm a co-founder and CEO at GitLab, and I'm chatting with the shadows of this week, Amy and Sam. And you scheduled this meeting yourself, so thanks for that. You prepared. Sam has the first question. Sam, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to start my own company at some point in the future. For a lot of reasons, the timing just isn't quite right for me yet. But I would love to get any advice that you may have on doing that, especially, the parts that I've struggled with more are how to go about finding and selecting good co-founders, and then also how to find and get initial rounds of funding.
Yeah, super tough. My wife, when she started a company, she did a bunch of founder dating. That didn't really work. You hear of very few successful founders that found someone through trying to meet other founders. Most of the times, it's either people they knew, for example, from their education, university, which is not it's a bit of a privileged thing, but that's what frequently happens, or people they met in the problem area. And that's how I and Dimitri met. Like Dimitri was just making GitLab. So I think it's like, first you kind of start, it's not like you find a co-founder and then you pick the problem to work on. Like you pick the problem to work on, you kind of start the startup, and then along the way you meet people. And then if someone is really great to work with, you should consider kind of doing the project together. So I'm not sure that's great advice. I think Y Combinator has seen a lot of early startups. They spend a lot of time thinking about this. I think it's easier to recruit a really talented person if you already have a little bit of traction. Otherwise, they're probably just going to go for the idea they thought of. So if you already have an idea, like make sure you can prove it has a bit of traction.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks for that. And do you have any pointers on how to go about getting initial rounds of funding?
Yeah. About the previous idea, it's totally cool to start a company by yourself. And although it's not as common, it's becoming more common. Initial rounds of funding. I would worry more about initial rounds of users. So I would say, like, you raise funding on traction, and I assume you're considering a software startup, and then there's a lot you can just do to kind of already get at least somewhere. And then the first round is, we went through Y Combinator. I can totally recommend that if you're a first-time technical founder, and that will really help kind of get you an audience with investors. And you don't need any funding to join Y Combinator, but you do need traction.
Yeah, that's some great advice. So start with that traction, and by traction, I'm assuming you mean like actual customer interest, or at least product, some kind of progress on the technical side, or maybe you can expand on that just a little bit more.
Yeah, well, the best thing is revenue. The second best thing is users. The third best thing is people who say they want to be your users and signed up for your wait list. And the fourth and not so good thing is just slightware of what the software potentially could be.
Awesome. And how would you recommend splitting up your time? I mean, in this shadow program, I've seen that you pretty actively are still working with, evangelizing the company. You're talking with potential investors. At this point, we're not even public yet. We have had funding in the past, but that activity hasn't really stopped for you. How do you see, from a new founder perspective, how would you split up your time between getting that traction and getting the company going versus going out and fundraising?
Yeah. As soon as you've done your first round, you're going to have to raise more in the future or go public. So you have to keep going. So from then on, it's a continuous activity where you keep with burst, but you keep in touch with a lot of people. And every time you have an event, you reach out to like the top 30 to fundraise. When you're starting a company, I think you're not even sure it should be a venture-backed company. So I would only raise funding for a company if it can become a public company within 10 years, preferably 7. And you're starting, you don't even know yet. So I think I would just first aim to be a cash flow company, and then only raise if it's going so fast that you cannot keep up. So you basically raise funding because the company is growing too fast. If it's growing slow, you should be able to keep up with it just by charging customers. When starting GitLab, I did use like 100K of my own money to bootstrap it, because it was already going a bit faster than we anticipated. But I think if it's slow, then it's better to do it yourself, because if you raise outside money, you have to return it, and you have to kind of grow faster than kind of the interest rate on that money. The interest rate on that money is they expect a 10x return in 7 years. So that's steep growth.
Absolutely.
So like 98% of all companies are better off without external funding.
Great. Well, thanks for that context. I'd also like to talk a little bit more about GitLab, and I don't know if at some point here we might want to stop live streaming or not, but I think we're okay for now. So I'm trying to identify what our unique differentiator is as a company and how we sustain that in the future. And I know we just had a session where we talked a lot about strategy. I'm still struggling a little bit to identify what that is. There's a lot that we're working on here, breadth, depth, SMB, enterprise, SaaS, self-managed. We're tackling a lot as a company. And so I'm just trying to better understand, what is our strategy there so that I can help align my product direction for my group with the overall company strategy.
Yeah, thanks. We do both SaaS and self-managed. And I think the important thing is to recognize that. And we should, as a company, make sure that we don't have instance level features that are not accessible by our .com clients. It should just be the root group or something like that you do that on. So that's a technical change we have to make sooner rather than later. We are not focused on a particular segment. We have ICs, managers, directors, and executives buying our software, and we're in use from anywhere from hobbyists that ran it on a Raspberry Pi to Fortune 10 companies. So that's kind of a given. We're not unique there. We span the gamut. Where we are unique is in two ways. We are great steward of our open source projects, and that's why we have more and more wider community contributions. Most open source projects lose their community as they start commercializing. We're growing it. Very proud of that, and it's a big turbo on the flywheel that's GitLab. The other one is we're a single application. We're bringing all of DevOps into a single application. That's very hard to do. Probably there will be only one other company that can even remotely pull that off, and they're very far behind. So very unique, very specialized, and that leads to, we know if people use more stages, more revenue per user and more users. So that's another great thing we have going for us. So I would focus on
that single.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that single application differentiator absolutely makes sense to me. And I think that is a way that we can provide a lot of value to our customers over and beyond other alternatives for most of the situations. You know, when we do see other products that start to mirror that single application approach, I guess that's the aspect of differentiation where, you know, I'm wondering if there's anything else that we can really bring to bear as a company, or, you know, to help us stand out or provide value above and beyond what they might get with another single application tool.
I think, look, you're senior product manager for our defense section. I think your big focus should be, how do we get people to use the functionality we ship? We just ship a whole lot with very few people, very proud of the defense section. But now the whole name of the game is get them to use it, make it so easy to use it. I'm not sure if I start a template today. When I install GitLab, I start a new project, I select a template, whether I get Falco with some super sane default settings. Do you get that or not?
Yeah, so the installation process right now for Defend is definitely not something I would call easy to use, right? I mean, we just shipped it. It's truly minimal in every sense of the term. Right now it gets set up via CI/CD through Auto DevOps. So you go in, you create your cluster. You have to connect to a cluster anyway because it's all in Kubernetes. Then you pick your cluster management project, and in that project you specify that you want Falco to be installed. So you switch that to install to true. When that pipeline reruns, then that installs Falco into the cluster. So it has some advantages. The current approach has advantages in that it is keeping with our infrastructure as code paradigm and a lot of those principles. The flip side to that is there's not a whole lot of UI around that to make it easy and obvious, one, to set it up, and two, to even answer a basic question of is it installed or not. So those are definitely both gaps that we need to address in the future.
Yeah, I will make that your priority 1, 2, and 3. And the end goal should be to have it on by default, to have it so reliable and so seamless that if you just install GitLab and you connect it to a Kubernetes cluster, every application that GitLab deploys will just have Falco installed because it's safer, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Well, while we're on strategy, I just was curious as we're defining our next 3 years plus strategy, what role do you see partners playing in that, and how can we prioritize that from a metrics and data standpoint?
Yeah, I think that our partners, especially the hyper clouds and the hybrid clouds, the hybrid clouds, we should stay very close to them. We should work with them. And for everything that is not Microsoft, they should be advocating for their customers to use GitLab so that their customers are not using GitHub and being pushed towards Azure. So I think the metric that I'm watching closely is partner initiated opportunities. Are they bringing their customers to us because they want their customers to use something that isn't owned by a cloud, by their competitor?
Is there a way for you to hear those stories? Is it when you sit on actual customer calls with sales, or do you look at a report? What would be a really helpful way to track PIOs or partner initiated opportunities in the future?
Yeah. Actually, the report I don't have. I want PIACV, partner initiated IACV. That would be a great metric to see.
I'll assign that to me, because that's something I would like to see too, especially as I manage a lot of different eco partners and a large cloud partner as well.
Great, that'd be awesome.
That was it for strategy. I have another question, but before I move on, Sam, did you want to ask anything else?
Well, Sam
for
already
strategy?
asked 2 questions, so
All right, my time.
let's
No,
go.
I'm good. Go for it, Amy.
Perfect. Yeah, so I just recently read or discovered this concept of a shadow board at companies. There was a Harvard Business Review and then a Forbes article about it. I was curious if you've seen other companies implement that, and then had a follow-on question specific to GitLab if we'd ever consider doing that as a company. And there's a link to the articles in our shared document.
Yeah, I think we, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that. I think we're, as a company, we struggle to kind of engage the next generation of leaders on initiatives from the e-group. So I'm going to open up these articles and have a look at them.
Yeah, I think it's incredible that GitLab already has this CEO Shadow program. I know Sam and I really enjoyed just this 1 week, and we have a really talented board. And I think as people are growing in their careers and we're focused on diversity, inclusion, and belonging, it could be a really neat concept. Haven't really thought through how we'd roll that out, but the article goes into detail on different ways you could do that.
Cool. I'll read both articles. Thanks for highlighting those.
Yeah. Those are my 2 questions.
There's no limit.
We've got a few more minutes left, so. Did you have a chance, I guess this might be okay for live stream, but did you have a chance to look through the analysis that Sam and I did from the strategy session?
I did start reading that. I didn't finish reading it.
Yeah, the way the meeting was structured, we were largely freed up from our normal note-taking duties, so we took the opportunity to mirror our thinking here.
Let's put it in the chat and let's have a look at them. And I'll end the live stream. But thanks for being okay with the live stream.